All right, it's a great day and greetings to everyone who is joining us from across Africa, and those joining us from Europe um, and America, from wherever it is you're joining us from. My name is Joshua Awesome, and I'd like to take a moment to give everyone who is still trying to join in to basically have the opportunity to do that. So while we wait for people to join into the meeting, I'm just going to also request that if you're not able to log in, you're welcome to also join us via YouTube. My name is Joshua Awesome. Many people are comfortable calling me Awesome Coach. I'm a coaching psychologist, and I founded African Institute of the Mind last decade. So one of my deepest desires is to be able to monthly use this platform to be able to support us as Africans to mind our minds. Like I indicated, I'm a coaching psychologist, and I run my business out of Santon City, which is where I am right now, coming to you live for this November Mind Your Mind edition of our monthly event. Interestingly, this is actually going to be the last for the year. However, we have decided to actually give it a very interesting title. And if you possibly got the invite, you possibly noticed that we gave it a very interesting title. And the title basically is Closing the Year and Reopening Your Heart. And so as I thought about this month's edition, one of the things that came back to my mind was the fact that as human beings, we basically sometimes are governed by our environment, which should not be the case. But more importantly, we should not allow what is happening externally, which is our environment, to control our internal life and our inner landscape. And so I'm going to take a moment and just show you a video, and it's a funny video. And this funny video really is one that basically just talks to what we are trying to get everyone to appreciate about this very, very last edition for the year 2021. And it's a video that I'm hoping everyone who is joining us here will be able to maybe share, their perspective. And when I say share their perspective, I mean, take a moment to type in the chat box. So maybe we should actually do that as we begin. Wherever it is you are joining us from, please type it in the chat box. If you're joining us from South Africa, please type South Africa. If you're joining us from East Africa, please type the name of the country. All right, I see someone typing Nigeria. I see somebody typing South Africa. And so welcome from wherever it is you are joining us from. We are humbled, we are grateful that you're able to join us. Why is it very special to us? Because you watching, you who is a part of this, you are very, very special. You are special because you have a unique DNA that is coded within your inner landscape and is totally unique. Nobody else on the planet has, that fingerprint of yours and your iris. It's unique to you. So that's one of the things that makes you really special. And I say that because it's important for everyone who is joining us to realize that we bring this to you because we believe that one of the things we need to do as Africans is to support each other as best as we can. This is why the African Institute of the Mind, which I founded last decade, hosts this Mind Your Mind Masterclass with an intention to help Africans, and by extension, the world, mind their minds, one mind at a time. So yesterday, a very sad incident happened here in Santon City, where I run my coaching psychology practice from. A person jumped and committed suicide. It breaks my heart. Why? Because mental health should no longer be made minor on our continent. It should be made major. And it is when we make mental health major that the situations that feels like a minor matter to minds outside the heart and the soul of the person who is going through what they only know within their inner landscape really requires some form of support. That's why it's important for us as human beings to be careful how we language whatever it is we are thinking or feeling about a person or a situation, because you never really know how it can impact the mind of the person that you are sharing a perspective around. And so watch this short video that I'm going to show right now, and please enjoy it. And once we are done with that, I would appreciate you share, your perspective in the chat box. And I'm going to play it twice so that you can really just watch it again.
Okay, whenever you're ready. You'll try again.
Now I'm going to play it one more time, and I'd like you to watch it again, but more importantly, watch everything that is happening, including the boy's action and everything else around. And I'd like to, just hear what your perspective is after you've watched it.
Okay, whenever you're ready. You'll try again.
Great. So as I, pull us back into, the conversation, I'm curious to hear what came to your mind as you watched that video. Yes, the father who was recording it had his own, expression, and the young boy too also had his own expression. But I'm keen to hear, what came to your mind when you watched that video. Please type it in the chat box, and I'm going to read one or two feedback that you share. So while you are sharing that, I'm going to read my quote for the month, or my quote, for this last edition of Mind Your Mind. Happiness depends on being free, and freedom depends on being courageous. Okay, so Kanyo, I see you're saying that you heard the cheers and the encouragement from the mother. Now, that is a very interesting perspective. Thank you, Kanyo, for sharing that. Now, so the cheers and the encouragement. Okay, so that could be a way that the boy was wrapped with those kind words. And the reality is that, in life, we need people to cheer us, but also encourage us. So thank you, Kanyu, for sharing that. I'm keen to also see if there's one more perspective before I then move on, to the meat of this last edition of our Mind Your Mind. So while I wait for that, I'm going to read my quote for the month and this last edition one more time. Happiness depends on being free, and freedom depends on being courageous. So I see one from David. Okay. Yeah, David says he seemed enthusiastic. Okay. Now that's a very interesting one too. Thank you, David. Thank you, Kayo. Now I'm going to share my perspective from my coaching psychological lenses. But before I do that, I just like to share a perspective around the quote I just read. Happiness depends on being free, and freedom depends on being courageous. This quote is actually supported, by and it's supported by a very interesting Russian nesting doll of wisdom, as it is called. And the quote is actually from an ancient Greek statesman, Pericles. And Pericles gives us a step-by-step understanding of how we as human beings can achieve happiness, which from his perspective begins with courage. And in this formula, Pericles tries to posit in the order that for us to find joy and contentment in this life, we must have the liberty of choice and achievement that then brings us to a place of freedom. We must have what is he called ironclad will and unwavering devotion to our own convictions. And so I would, circle back with, my perspective right now around that whole, funny video. When you think about the quote I just read to you and what Pericles posits here today, the very important bridge and layer is the need for us all to first recognize that whatever happens to you as a person, okay, is an incident, all right? Okay, now that incident is simply external, all right? And because it is external, it should not define your inner landscape. It should not define who you truly are. Remember when I started with the fact that every one of us has DNAs. Every one of us, is locked with a unique iris, and we are locked with also unique fingerprints that is, pretty much unique to us. And the point I'm trying to bring to your attention, permit me to use this word, I'm trying to bring your attention to attention. In other words, the external, okay, the boy fell, and yes, as much as the boy fell, the fall should not determine his eventual choice, should not determine how he sees life, should not determine how he accepts himself. And so that video was funny, but more importantly, the father who was filming it was also the first person to laugh. Regardless of that, the boy got up, okay? He got up, and then he also did something very interesting. He vocalized his conviction, all right? He said, I will try again, okay? Now think about you, okay? The baby you, who possibly was at that boy's age. You may not remember the things that have happened to you when you were a baby, maybe 2 or 3 years old. However, there's one thing that I want you to take away from that video, okay? Every one of us is born with convictions. We are born with courage. We won the very first war or the very first race within our mother's womb. Okay. And the one interesting thing you should never forget is that that is who you are. You are designed to accentuate. You are designed to accelerate. And regardless of the falls you had as a baby, you got up. That's why you are still here. And that is why, just like that boy, when he tried to, swing the cartoon or toy baton, and he fell, he did not allow the fact that the father was filming it to affect his courage, to affect his will, which is one very important thing that every one of us possesses. We all possess willpower. And once we affirm ourselves, once we find the courage to get up one more time, we then get kind cheer, okay, which is what his mother did. The mother cheered him and encouraged him. However, if the boy did not get up, he possibly would not have received that cheer, that encouragement. And I share that because I think most times we do not find help or get support because many times we're not making the first move. So he made the first move, and that, pretty much helped and enhanced, his success. So I'd like to move on to the body of, my conversation today. And for the benefit of those who are just joining us, we just showed a short video that really talks to something very interesting about life and the need for us to learn to rise up and get up. And if we have time, I will share that video one more time before, we wrap up today. But I'm going to share with you a very interesting research data, bearing in mind that today's edition of Mind Your Mind is designed to help you close out the year and open your heart to the realities and the possibilities that resides within your personality. So I'm going to pull out a very interesting research data from Science Direct, and it was a recent release in the global research community. And this one talks to what is acronym QOL, which is the quality of life and the psychological resilience and personality traits and illness perception in, grown-up congenital heart patients. And this was actually, a submission from the research community by one of my colleagues out in Hong Kong. And the research data is quite interesting. The background studies suggested, that the quality of life with people with, that health status pointed out something very important that was submitted and gathered during this clinical data submission. And I'd like to read a few of the thoughts, that emerged with those of us who are on the call today. Okay. And the very one thing that leaps out to me in this submission is that as human beings, we many times, and I'm reading the results, it says the quality of life scores and health status were lower in patients than their healthy peers. Okay, and it was associated with those who had greater disease severity and worse functional class. And more importantly, and I think, you might not understand the scientific plugins and data points that it's talking to, but the long and short of it and the introduction of this research data is pointing to the fact that many times as human beings, we sometimes do not realize how powerful our hearts can be, so resilient even in the midst of a crisis. In other words, the quality of the life of people who, have a psychological level of resilience, their traits, their personality traits compared to, their heart health. And when there's an illness, is not as impactful as, the resilience level that the heart possesses and the quality of life that they are able to have. An interesting thing, that this data points to is that, the people that were polled in this, their quality of life really was amazing, eventually, because they were able to live longer than, people who were not resilient. And that's the long and short of what, the research talks to. Now, I'm going to show that video one more time. And I'm linking that video to this research data that I just read. And I'd like you to just watch it one more time as I begin to pull, this video out.
Okay, whenever you're ready. You'll try again.
Now, one interesting thing that I'd like you to take away from this video is the power to pull yourself up resides within you. The boy did not need to think about it. He just got up. It's inside your DNA. It's within you, okay? And resilience ability resides within all of us. So I'd like you to have that as one key thing, that you take with you on this call. And the other thing for me is a very interesting piece that I'm actually going to share with us. And it's another interesting video. And this video will be my closeout. But before I share it, I'm keen and curious, to hear what stood out for you if you're just joining us from that video. And I'd like you to type it in the chat if you're just joining us. We've had our goal for those of us who have been here from the start. But more importantly, I'd like to just hear your perspective, read your thoughts, and then move to the very next. So while we are moving, waiting for those who are just joining us to share their perspective, I will take a moment to just share a very interesting story with you. Okay. Okay. So thank you, David. The laugh by his father sounded kind and encouraging. Now, it's quite interesting that even though you are not physically there where this video was recorded, you could pick up, that there was some kindness and encouragement to the father's laugh. Now, I think as human beings, one of the things that we all need to take note of is that people notice kindness. People appreciate kindness. People value it. People recognize it. And it doesn't cost anything to be kind, really. It's rather you get more by being kind. When you are kind to a person, even if it's a stranger, there is a warm feel within you that helps you, to experience some form of, embrace internally. Okay. And that kind of opens your heart in a way. And kindness is very, very, very good. It's important. I know what it feels like, when somebody is kind to me. And in this cold world, this world where, people don't care about people's emotions, they don't care about the other person, to just be kind makes the world a better place. And so I'm going to share another video to close us out. But before I share that video, I'm going to share a very interesting, short story. And this was actually shared by a colleague, an industry colleague, and he carried out, this in a very interesting way. Okay, so he put about 100 black ants in a big jar. All right. And after putting the 100 black ants in that big jar, he then took another 100 red ants, okay, and then poured them into the same jar. All right. Now, the interesting thing is that the red ants were simply accepting their new environment. All right. Remember, they were in a separate jar. Okay. And then the black ants were the first to get into that jar. Okay. Now, the interesting thing is that after a minute thereabout, the colleague then took the jar of 100 red and 100 black ants and shook it. When he shook the jar, something interesting began to happen. Okay. The jar began to shift. And when I say shift, the ants that were easily just walking around and trying to navigate around the jar began to fight. And they were not just fighting, they also began to kill each other. Okay. Now, take a moment with me and think about this one more time. First, the black ants were inside the jar, no issues. Then the red ants were poured into the same jar, capped, still no issues. And then a shaking happened. That shaking then led to the red ants and the black ants to begin to fight. And the moment the fight began, it led to a war, okay? And that war became something that researchers began to reflect on. Before I share the research outcomes of research colleagues, I would like to hear your thoughts about, the red ants and the black ants. What do you think? What do you think, happened? Why do you think they began to fight? Please type your answer in the chat box. So while you're, thinking about your response, I would like you to take a moment and watch this second video with me, okay? And I'm going to share my perspective about this second video also, and I'm keen to hear what your thoughts are. Right. So I'm now going to, just look out for your perspective, okay? While we are waiting for people to type in the chat box, I'd like you to also think about that second video. So while we're thinking about that second video, and there's a reason why I'm sharing that second video, and I'm going to link it to this research about the red ants and the black ants, okay? For the benefit of those who've just joined us, whether you're joining us via Zoom or you're watching via Facebook, I just shared a short story which comes from some research colleague of mine out in the US, and they had put 100 black ants inside a jar, and then they also poured 100 red ants into the same jar, and a minute later shook, both, shook the jar, and the ants, the black ants and the red ants began to fight. And as they began to fight and the fight continued, they then began to kill each other. So I see a feedback here. David says, for me, he looked like he was, okay, you're talking about the video. Looks like as if he was driving the nails into the boulder, yes, and he was trying to break it, which he did. And there's a metaphor behind that I'm also going to link to the ants. So here's the interesting thing about, the ants, the red ants, and the black ants. Okay, Kanyo says we react to those who look different to us. All right. It must have been a personality and culture clash. Okay, the black ants had never seen red ants and vice versa. The black ants felt invaded in their territory where they had been living in peace until the red ants got there. Interesting perspective. Thanks, David. Thanks, Kanyo. And here is my analogy, okay? And this should be a reflection for all of us. First and foremost, okay, the jar for me is a reflection of our brain as human beings. Okay, so your brain is used to certain acceptances, experiences, things that, it's used to, okay, and this one, okay, also said, you agree with Kanyo. Yes, okay, so indeed, they felt threatened, which is a very interesting lesson, actually, which we can think about. You are in your comfort zone and some, stranger or strangers show up in your space. And it's like, okay, what's happening here? This is, personality culture clash. And the reality is, Kanye also said vice versa. The black ants felt invaded in their territory, where they had been living in peace. Now, here's what I'd like you to think about. Think about it from COVID, okay? Many people have been living life, and I don't know how old you are, wherever it is you're chiming from. And it's not as important as the fact that you have a brain, and it's a great brain. Now, I have one too. And here's the thing about all of us. All of us who've lived on the planet and are living on this planet right now, unless you are in your 100 years old, you possibly have never seen a pandemic and experienced COVID on the planet like we have. Okay, so look at it from this angle. Okay, the black ants is the normal stresses of the day. The one that you are used to here and there. It's okay, it happens, okay? It stresses you. You are able to find a way to navigate through it. And then the red ants show up. The red ant is like COVID, all right? And the COVID symptoms begin to arrive. And you are noticing some way, somehow, you're not feeling yourself. While you are not feeling yourself, the cytokine storm, okay? The cytokine storm is the main issue behind COVID. And then it begins to shake you, okay? And brings you into that place where you're wondering, okay, what is happening? The question is, who did the shaking, all right? Because you see, remember, they were still in the midst of the uncomfortable. Black ants, red ants were still together. There was no fight, but it was the shaking that catalyzed the fight. In other words, as you continue with what was not part of you, some way, somehow on your journey, it will experience an uncomfortable state, all right? And that's what COVID has done to the brains of human beings, where, the impact, the fact that we didn't notice it when it showed up into our inner landscape, and then it began to gradually, in the midst of whatever it is, then the shaking, external factors, the environment, okay, us being closed in, put in, the type of situations that we found ourselves in, boom, and we got shook. And all of a sudden, okay, many people's brains began to get affected, okay? And that's how many people began to die. Look at it from this angle. I'm now going to shift to the video, okay? All right. Now that video is also the same metaphor. Look at it just like the human brain, all right? The first boulder is put in, the second one, the third one. Yeah, it's not breaking. But all of a sudden, the impact continues. And see that rock as if it's your brain, okay? And then all of a sudden, some way, somehow, it continues. And then it gives way. Ladies and gentlemen, can I say this to you? Believe it or not, the brain of human beings on the planet is not what it was before COVID. I don't own a vaccine. I don't own, a brand. I'm not in government. However, I am a researcher, and I'm privileged to be part of a global academic research institute. And there's a lot of scientific data that I have access to. I am also privileged to also be involved in a company out in Europe that is trying to create a solution that will help us as Africans to be able to recover and find a way towards recovering and finding ourselves. Whether we have COVID or we've had COVID stress is not as important as the need for us to realize one very important thing, that if you are going to have a better life, it begins with a better brain. And so I'd like you to think about this conversation that we've had today, okay? From the very first one that really talked to that young boy, okay, who many of us may not remember when we were kids. However, the one thing that is very common for all of us is the reality that every one of us is built with the capacity, the resilience ability, the response ability to be able to win the war within ourselves, and regardless of the disease, okay, the word disease is dis-ease, whatever is, leading towards you feeling uneasy, okay, has come and has ravaged you, and you have survived and you have thrived and you are still here. I'd like you to pause and think about your growing stage and how you are still here and how you have come to this point and this place where you are still alive and you are well, all right, and you are here, and help is available if you need it. I mean, the African Institute of the Mind offers support if you need, support that is linked to mental health, and this is what we do at the African Institute of the Mind. We support Africans to mind their minds. Aside this monthly Mind Your Mind Masterclass, we also, from this office here in Santon City, are able to support people from a psychological construct. If you need some form of support to be able to help you navigate through, the challenges that you are feeling. And I'm here if you'd like to talk with me. And I'm not the only person. We also have a psychiatrist on our team who's able to also, bring support. And I'm saying this because every life matters. Yours, mine, all of our lives really and truly matters. Okay, so the one other thing which I believe every one of us needs to properly consider and think about is the state of our brain health. Okay, if you have been feeling 1, 2, or 3 of the 200 symptoms that the World Health Organization listed that people will face and experience post-COVID, okay, help is available. All right, here in this office, we're excited and grateful to be able to bring support. And if you cannot afford it, it is our honor, it will be our honor and our privilege to be able to offer it to you at no cost. This is why the African Institute of the Mind exists. And this is why we are here today. having this conversation so that you are able to understand, that if you are feeling some way, maybe, your sense of taste has not fully recovered, or your hormones is feeling somehow, you don't understand it, or your sense of hearing, or you're having brain fog where you are, forgetting things and you're not remembering things. You are not alone. There are many people on the planet who are going through whatever it is that you are going through. And what I'm trying to say to you is that it is okay, even if things are not feeling okay. It is okay for you to feel that support. And as a member of the African Board for Coaching Consulting and Coaching Psychologist, I'm governed by ethical values, and you are guaranteed that you will be supported in a very professional manner that will help towards your recovery. So I'd like to take a moment right now and ask, as we begin to wrap up, what has stood out for you from these conversations that we have had? Has there been anything that has stood out for you? And have you, if you want to type one word, what will that one word be? What would your one word be? And if you want to make it 2 words, go ahead. Or if you want to make it a sentence, please go ahead. And as I begin to wrap it up, I'm going to, for the benefit of those who are just joining us, I'm going to take a moment. Okay, so somebody says happiness, keys to finding happiness. Thank you. As we begin to wrap up, I'm going to take a moment for the benefit of those who are just joining us. Okay, somebody says resilience. Okay, you are resilient. Yes, you are. Resilience ability resides within you. So I'm going to take a moment to read the quote that I started with for the benefit of those who are just joining us. Happiness depends on being free. And freedom depends on being courageous. So if you're going to experience freedom, if you're going to experience happiness, then there are some very important things that you need to be taken very seriously. And the one thing that I believe is, when we think beyond ourselves, the world becomes a better place. Okay? Excuse me. When we think beyond ourselves, the world becomes a better place, where you are not just thinking me, and not just thinking, okay, it's all about me. No, it's not all about you. Everybody on the planet is important. So as we begin to wrap up, I would like to take you on a short, exercise. Now, think self-care while we are doing this exercise, okay? Think self-care, and whichever one you cannot do, please, by all means, you don't need to go the distance, with it. If you feel that your body is not able to, go further, you are very welcome to pause, at the very place where, you possibly have been able to get to. So, and I'm saying that because it's an exercise that will require, you moving your body in some way. And I will encourage everyone who can to do the best they can. So this one is particularly designed to help open your heart and wake up your body, as it were. Okay. Thank you, Andiswa. You said you agree about happiness. You started feeling happy when you learn to let go of things that you can't change and forgive those who hurt you. Now, here's something very interesting about you said that Madiba talks about. Madiba says, when you are carrying a burden, all right, or it hurts, it's like drinking poison, and then you're expecting the person who hurt you to die. Now, you drank the poison, and nobody should drink poison, by the way. Madiba was just using that as an analogy to say, it's like somebody drinking poison and then expecting somebody else to die. That's how, hurt feels. When you carry it, you carry it for so long. It's a weight on you. I mean, some people are still holding on to hurt that somebody, meted to them maybe a decade, 2 decades ago. For your own health and sanity, let's lose the weight. Trust me. I mean, I've climbed Kilimanjaro twice. And I remember climbing Kilimanjaro the second time in honor of Madiba's 95th birthday. And I would never forget, what it feels like to climb a mountain. There's a certain amount of weight that is allowed. If you carry too much, you won't be able to get to the summit. Take it from me, as somebody who's successfully summited 5 mountains, I can tell you one thing: you don't need any weight to be able to summit, the mountains that you carry within you as dreams, as desires, as goals, as objectives. So let loose the weight. Okay? Talk to yourself. Say, hey, Wena, let loose the weight. Hey, you, let loose the weight. Call your name. Hey, Joshua, let go of the weight. Okay? And call your name. Tell yourself that. You see, because sometimes it's important to talk to yourself. All right? As you talk to yourself, it's not insanity. It's actually you affirming or communicating to yourself and helping yourself realize the need for you to take certain things very seriously. And so I'm going to lead us on that, exercise right now. And if you can, please, I would encourage you to please stand up if you can. If you can't,
I'm not sure I understand.
Okay. Siri, no, thank you.
Okay.
And so we're going to do this, and I encourage everybody as much as you can, to join me in this one. All right. Yeah, I know. And this one, it's not easy to climb mountains. I know. Trust me. I've been there. All right. So, and this basically is designed to help wake up your body. All right. So if you can, just stand. If you can remove your shoes. You don't have to. You don't have to. Just keep your legs a little bit wide open. And so start by raise your toes, okay, and then put the big toe, and then one after the other, try and place them onto the ground. If you didn't get it right, don't worry, okay? So this is basically a wake up. It's a mindful moment that is designed to help aid minding your mind, your body, your brain. So you stand in a sequence basically to energize your body, okay? So come to that standing position, and that standing position then helps to bring you into a very interesting place. So then you are now open your chest, okay, and then open your hands as you do that, all right? Now do it one more time, and breathe in and out as you do that. Okay, now let's begin to lift up our hands if you can. Breathe in and out. All right, widen it. If you feel like you can't go further, just slowly slow it down. All right, slow it down. And then again, lift up your hands a bit. Breathe in. As you breathe out, take it to the right. Breathe in. Back to the center. Breathe out to the left. Breathe in. Now let's go in, out, in, out, in, out, in, back to the center. Open your hands. Take note that your feet should still be in a posture as if you're standing. Now open your chest and out. Now tilt to the right, okay, as if you're trying to pick something from the ground, but make sure you are not slouching, your left hand, just keep it, in a way that is still looking as if, it's standing still and straight. but you're still keeping the right hand as I'm posturing in front of the video. All right. Now breathe in, and now let's do it to the right now. Now, if you are feeling as if you're slouching, you are not doing it correctly, just keep your head up, all right? And then in, back to the center. Now let's lift up our hands. Okay, I'm touching my wall here. Maybe I should just move back up a little bit, okay? Use your left hand to hold the right, all right? Okay? See, you can see the grip I'm doing. And bring it to the center if you can. Let's do it one more time, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're breathing in, controlling your breath as you're doing that. And this basically is helping your inner landscape, all right? Now let's basically return back to the posture. We open our chest and in and out, okay? So we're going to go a little bit down now. Now, this is where you stay if you have lower back issues. You don't need to go beyond this point if you have lower back issues, okay? But if you don't have lower back issues, I'd like you to think about, you know, a stress reduction colleague calls this blossoming your buttocks, okay? At this point, you know, it's feeling as if you should think about your back as if, you know, you are putting something there to actually hold on to it, all right? If you feel that you are uncomfortable, you don't need to go further now. But if you can now place your hands on your knees. You don't have to go further if you feel uncomfortable about this. This is where you stay. If you cannot go further, but if you're able to go further with me, I'm going to put my hands on the floor, and then you breathe in and out. In and out. Okay, at this point, I'd like you to stay here for a minute if you're able to. If you can't, stay at that initial posture. All right, now I'm going to put my hands on to hold my legs, and then gradually begin to come back up to the knee posture. Before you then come back up, it's like you're using your back to then take a deep breath in and out. Now, this exercise basically is opening your chest and helping your inner landscape to experience some opening that can help your inner landscape with regards to whatever stresses that are, you know, kinked inside. All right, so next now, let's put our hands forward if you can. Now, this is where you stay if you have lower back issues, but if you don't, you are welcome to join me and go a little bit down now. I see someone is trying to come into the room. Let me just give them access. Okay, so back to the one we were trying to wrap up with. All right, if you can, just stay on this posture. If you cannot, you are welcome to back up if you're feeling uncomfortable, all right? But I'm going to go a bit further. If you can, join me in that. If you can't, please respect your body's self-care, all right? So let's go now down a little bit and now back up and lift up your hands. Now you're standing tall with your hands lifted straight. If you can't see my hand, now this time you then bring it straight to your sides. Feel the pulse, feel the throbbing. Now we're going to go to the next one. Open your chest. Okay, if you can, stand on your toes. We're trying to balance now. Okay, if you're not able to, please, self-care is very important as much as we are trying to release our bodies of every stress and every toxin and, you know, whatever it is that is standing in the way of our inner landscapes recovery into full health and well-being. All right, so take this posture for 1 more minute or less. Breathe in, hold it, and out. All right, So you're now going to seal this. Place your left hand on your chest and place your right hands over your left hands. As we're coming to a close, I'd like to express my sincere gratitude for everyone who has joined us on this month's Mind Your Mind Masterclass that is focusing on opening your heart. Okay, closing the year and reopening your heart. I'm hoping that this has been very helpful for you. If you're just joining us, my name is Joshua Awesome. I founded African Institute of the Mind, run out of my office here in Santon City. And you're welcome. If you would like to contact us, my assistant is actually on the call. Priscilla, please chime in your email or drop your email there. You can send an email to her to book a session if you can afford it. If you can't afford it, the African Institute of the Mind will be glad to offer it to you at no cost to you. This is our gift to our continent every month, where we try to help Africans to mind their minds one mind at a time. So as we begin to close, I'd like you to type in the chat box one very interesting feeling that you had if you did any of those movement exercises. And I'd like to just read a few. Somebody just literally said this has been an awesome and an awakening session. Well, thank you, Kayo. And so I'd like to begin to close, but before we close, again, the email that you can send an email to is assistant@theawesomecoach.online. I've just typed it in the chat. I'm not sure if Priscilla is still there. Yes, really, it does help because movement is medicine. And so thank you to everyone who's joined us. Please type your email address, and please also put your office WhatsApp line in there. So you can drop a WhatsApp message and contact my assistant, who is also on the call. Her email is shared there, and the WhatsApp is also usable if you need support. You are not alone. So as we begin to close, I would like to thank everyone who has joined us on this call. I'd like you to also bear in mind that every one of us is very important. You are not alone. And we are here to support you at the African Institute of the Mind. If you can do it, if you live in South Africa, you're welcome to book an appointment through the WhatsApp and communicate with her. Otherwise, right. Somebody said they're placing their hands on their chest. Right, you're welcome. It's a pleasure. Thank you so much. But more importantly, I'd like to one more time say to everybody who is here, self-care is very important. We're here to support you. African Institute of the Mind is here to support every African without discrimination, one mind at a time, helping you to mind your mind. If you didn't get the opportunity to watch this from start to finish, this is actually recorded, and it's also on YouTube. So you can watch it again on YouTube. And I wish you the very best into December. And we will not be having a Mind Your Mind next month. We will only be having a new one at the end of January. However, regardless of that, you're welcome to also continue to check some of our sessions, which we record every Monday, called Mindful Monday Moment. So that will happen continually every week. But until the new year, I would like you to please be safe, okay? If you're dealing with challenges you cannot handle by yourself, addictions, trauma, stress, you're welcome to reach out to us. The cell number that was shared with you there is one that you can use to communicate with us in the office, or use the email. I wish you the very best. And I want you to know that your life is unique. Until the new year, when we come together again, I wish you all the best of life filled with peace and abundant blessings. My name is Joshua Awesome, and thank you for joining us once again. Do take charge.